Hey folks, Colin here from Something's Recording. Today we're covering a very useful tip if you're a home studio engineer or even just a home studio artist. Today we're going over how to figure out the BPM of a song and then line it to the grid in your DAW. We're going to be figuring out the BPM to a couple different tracks today. We're going to do two different songs. We're going to find the BPM and then we're going to line both tracks to the grid on the BPM. But before we dive in here, if you're ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process in its entirety and really start to hone your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the thing for you. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the hassle and without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Oh, excuse me. Let's jump in here and get to work on these tracks. I have two different tracks here. We have a more hip-hop, rap style track, and then we're going to do a more pop style track. Both from popular music here today, so hopefully these instrumentals don't get me copyrighted and taken down. Just wanted to give you a couple examples if you're at home and you have maybe rappers coming into your studio and they're bringing in stereo instrumentals. It's very useful, very helpful to get them lined to the grid. So if they're flying around vocal parts, you don't have to kind of try and line them or match them to the song or kind of move them around inch by inch or sample by sample. You can fly them over, put them right on the grid, and you're good to go. It makes working with that type of music so much easier. If you're tracking to pop instrumentals, you have people coming in doing cover songs. Being on the grid, having your instrumental line to the grid and on the BPM is very helpful if you need to track to the click, if the singer needs to click in some parts of the song, if there's stops or gaps, or again, if you're flying around choruses to be able to sing one chorus and then pop it over to the second chorus so they're not singing the same parts over and over. All that to say, let's get to work here. We're going to do a couple different things with each song. Step number one, after we get our track imported, so we have our track dragged in here, imported into the session. We're going to zoom in a little bit more. Step number one is to figure out the BPM. So we need to figure out what the actual tempo of the song is here. So for me, it's always easiest to go to one of the louder sections of the song and hit play here and figure out the tempo from there. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the tap to tempo feature. Now, if you are using a track from popular music, so say they bring in a karaoke track or a stereo instrumental from a very popular modern song, you can actually just Google the BPM and kind of match up what's the most common one and then go from there. Sometimes they'll be varying, so you want to find which one appears the most and then input that into your DAW. And you might have to tweak it, but it's usually a great starting point. Now, if it's not, then you're going to have to use the tap tempo feature. So that's what we're going to use here today. I'm going to go to this loud section of the song here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to hit play, and then we're going to come down here where it says tap tempo, and all you got to do is you click on the tap tempo button, and you click along to the tempo or the beat of the song, and it's going to change the tempo here to match our song. And one thing I do like to do just as a precaution is to go up here. So if we click on our track and go up to the inspector window, I like to turn the tempo on to don't follow. That means our waveform here, our actual instrumental, isn't going to change and stretch to the changing BPM of our DAW here, because that would really screw things up as we messed around with this. So I'm going to hit play. We're going to tap along to the tempo here. So I'm going to come right down here and I'm going to click along to the song, and you'll see our tempo change along. And I'm going to go until we find something pretty steady, pretty even with the song here. Okay, so tapping along to that loudest section there, I got around 138. You got to make sure you're actually clicking on the tempo button. For the first second there, I was just clicking out in the open. I guess it wasn't actually registering. So make sure you're registering there. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to find a good transient, usually a downbeat, so a kick drum that we can move around and line up to a 1 here on the grid. So we can see our 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s. And if you want to get even more specific, you can kind of set it just to quarter notes, just so we have our 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. I'm going to leave it on 16th notes here because that's just where I usually leave my grid. I'm going to hit play, and we're going to try and find a strong downbeat or a strong 1. That right there works perfectly. So as long as you identify a good kick drum, you should be okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use the tab to transient function now to isolate just our downbeat here. So we're going to click on the track. We're going to go a little bit before this downbeat here in the timeline. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to click the tab button on my keyboard, and it's going to tab to the next transient in the song. So now we're on this kick drum here. So I'm going to cut at this kick drum. So Alt-X is the shortcut for cutting inside of Studio One. I'm going to delete everything beforehand here. And then I'm going to drag this downbeat to our next downbeat on the grid here. And we can kind of see if we're lining up here on the grid. I'm going to hit play, and we're going to venture through the song and see if we're on the grid here. Not quite. You can see by the next strong downbeat, our track is a little ahead. So that means our tempo is too slow. So what we're going to do is we're going to raise it. We're going to go up to 139. I'm going to drag this over to the next downbeat. That's why we have our transient. We have our transient saved so we can set it on the 1s here. Let's hit play one more time, see if we're on the grid. Not quite yet. The further we go into the song, the more we get off here. So let's go up one more. Let's go up to 140 here. Same thing. We're going to drag our transient, our 1, over to the next downbeat. Let's see where we're at here. So you can see I checked a couple different sections of the song here, and we are on the downbeats now. Once you find that you're on the downbeat, or if you're still unsure actually, something you can do that's very helpful is turn on the click. We can either come down here, or you can see our shortcut is C. We'll turn on our click track, see if it matches to the song. And we can hear our song lines right up with that. So now we have it on the grid. We're going to come here. We're going to drag the rest of our song back out. And sometimes what's nice is you'll see if you go to the beginning, we're starting right on a downbeat here. So everything lines up perfectly now. We are on the grid. We can turn on the click track if need be for the artist. So like that section there, for example, if they're trying to sing along with this, there's that big break. The click track can be helpful to have on there. There's a 2-bar break. It'll keep them in time while they're singing. So that's our first track here. We got it on the grid, so if there's any vocal parts we need to fly around, it's easy enough to just drag them from where they are, drag them over to the next section of the song, and slot them right in on the grid because our track is on the grid. We know the BPM. We can turn the click on if need be. Everything is set up for an artist to come in and track over this song. Now, we're going to save this here, and we're going to move over. We're going to do the same thing with a different style track here. We're going to do it with a more pop style track here, so again, you'll probably recognize this song. Hopefully it's not one that's going to get me taken down here. It is an instrumental that's up on YouTube, so hopefully that means we're going to be okay here. We're going to do the same process with this song here. So You can see this track is pretty even all the way through. The loudest section does look like it's at the end here, so we'll go to the end here. You usually want to start at the loudest section because that's going to give you the densest part of the song where you can stay on tempo. It's not going to be really loose or really sparse sounding, so you'll usually have drums in the loudest section that you can find the kick drum and stay on with. So same thing, we're going to go to our loudest section here, and I'm going to click along down here at our tap tempo function, and we're going to see if we can figure out the tempo for this song here. So this one's actually looking like it's going to be pretty easy. I was staying at 103 for most of the time here. I did go up to 104 and then down to 102, but even so, we're going to go right in the middle then. We're going to stay at 103. I'm thinking that's where we're at. Let's find a strong downbeat. I don't know if this guy here is going to be one. Sometimes the swell-ups are weird. Actually, no, that's a pretty strong downbeat. So same kind of thing we did last time, okay? We're finding our strong downbeat here. We're going to click on our track, and we're going to use the tab to transient feature. So I'm going to go a little bit before this downbeat here in the timeline. I'm going to click the tab button on my keyboard, and we're going to tab over to that downbeat. So now we have our downbeat selected. We're going to cut at that transient, at that downbeat. So Alt-X here inside of Studio One. We're going to delete everything beforehand because we're going to move this guy around here. And we're going to pull it over to the next one. And the reason I pull it over so further down the timeline to the next one is because if you pull it earlier in the timeline, then when you drag the rest of the track back, you're going to cut off the beginning of the song. We don't want to do that. So we've got it on our downbeat here. Let's hit play and see if we're lining up. That's looking like a pretty strong one. So pop tracks like this, you can see they're kind of a different animal. They're pretty much a lot easier usually than hip-hop rap style tracks. They can be a little bit more sparse and a little bit looser sounding than pop tracks like this. They're usually pretty tight. So we have it on the one. We're all set here. We're going to zoom out, pull the beginning of our track back out here. Looking good. If we go to the beginning of our song, we can see we're starting right on a one here. And same thing here, if we need to, if the artist needs it while they're singing along, we can turn on the click and it should line up. So you can see there's that big gap where there's no real music or beat going on. Being able to turn on the click track like that can be very, very helpful for an artist or singer that's trying to track along with this song. So we've done two separate tracks here, a more hip-hop rap style track and then a pretty straightforward pop style track. You can see the process is the same. One's just a little bit easier and a little bit tighter than the other. All we're doing here to figure out the tempo for our song. So using the tap to tempo feature, actually we get our track imported to figure out the BPM. Then we're going in using our tab to transient to find a 1, putting that 1 on the grid on our track here, then pulling out the rest of the track, and our track is now on the grid and ready to record to. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to take your mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your workflow as an engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and you can download it below to start creating more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you in the next video.